Hey guys, welcome to the LT Brings the Heat podcast. We're your hosts, Sean Laird and Adam Heisler, where we talk about baseball and sports performance. With topics ranging from coaching, business, and player development, our goal is to bring you a no BS approach to development in baseball and sports performance. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's rock and roll. Hey guys, welcome to the episode of LT Brings the Heat. We're your host, Sean Laird and Adam Heisler. Special episode today. We've got Keegan Curtis and Ryan Garton, two professional pitchers that have been doing this for a long period of time. Part one of this, we started talking about weighted balls. We started talking about the training, the accumulation of being able to do it, learning why you should be, making sure you're doing assessments and making sure you're taking care of your body. We're going to kind of treat this as if we don't know what the hell we're talking about, which essentially is the usual, right, Adam?
That's all right.
So we're going to listen to these guys and kind of get their experience because, Adam obviously knows these guys more than me. We got a nice Sunbelt connection here today. All of us played in the Sunbelt, so it's pretty cool to kind of get some experience. But we'll kind of rotate back and forth with the questions and kind of get what you guys are thinking about weighted balls and development of pitchers and maybe things you've done in the past versus what you're doing now. But I'll kind of start with you, Keegan, man. So how's everything going with you, buddy?
Man, everything's going good. You can't complain. Just taking it day by day. You know me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, with you, when it comes to weighted baseball training and stuff that you've done, and we kind of talked about this a little bit when we had you on the podcast before, but kind of where was your stance on weighted balls, and when did you actually start utilizing them in your training regimen?
My stance on weighted balls, I was always kind of skeptical at first. Because everybody hears about, people getting hurt and different things like that whenever they start to use weighted balls. I first got introduced to weighted balls my senior year of college by a guy named Joel Mangrum. And he really was kind of like the stepping stone for me when it comes to using the weighted baseballs. He really showed us how to, some days, it's a high intent, other days it's a lower intent type of deal. It's definitely not every day you're going out there just ripping them as hard as you can, because you obviously want your body and your arm to recover and be able to bounce back. But on the more, so I'm getting more into it, now with the Yankees and things like that. It's starting to get more, starting to be able to pinpoint more deep into things when it comes to it. Like certain drills that are beneficial for others that may not be beneficial to everybody else, right? There's different weighted ball drills that can be beneficial for me, who need that upbeat momentum, this high tempo type of guy. Versus like a big donkey, who might be like 6'6", 240. It just kind of varies. To me, it definitely varies on, how you should do it and the way that it needs to be done, for sure.
Yeah. So for you, when you give us for the guys that don't know you, give us your size and weight, and comparing to the big dudes, because I know you're a guy that progressively started increasing velocity over the last 4 or 5 years. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's definitely right. I'm not a big guy at all. I'm 5'11", 185, 190 pounds. I've been up to 195, 200. I feel like I best sit around 190 to 195.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's for me. When I listen to that and guys like that, I always hear people complain they can't throw hard because I'm only 5'10" or 5'11". Why don't you tell us, the listeners, how hard you're throwing off the bump nowadays?
Well, I was up to 99 in one of my pins during this blending phase, and now I've been sitting anywhere from 94, 96 in bullpens versus in games that used to be that was me topping out in games, and now I'm sitting there reaching these PRs in bullpens. So I'm excited to for this next week. Actually, I finally get to start getting some live ABs. So I'm excited to finally get to a little bit of a game-like atmosphere to see what's going to happen.
Hell yeah, absolutely. And to me, like I wanted to ask that question because I think it's important for people to realize, like, you can build your body into throwing hard. You can train to throw hard. Like a lot of people sit back and they go, well, it's easy when you're 6'5", and you're throwing absolute shed. It's easy when you have 220 pounds. Like, you've built yourself into the pitcher that you are today. And obviously, there was talent that's involved with that. But, from listening to you before, in the podcast before, you're a hard worker and you bust your ass to kind of build yourself into that. When you were a senior in college, how hard were you throwing?
I would say I would top at 95 max.
Top at 95. Yep.
Yeah.
And coming out of high school, where were you at velocity wise?
I want to say coming out of high school, I probably sat 88 to 90, and I would top at 92.
Nice. So 88 to 90, and now you're about up to 99. That's pretty cool, especially with the introduction of weighted balls right around your senior year of college. Is that about right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. That's good stuff. Well, Adam, what you got, man?
Yeah, so Ryan, let's kind of touch on your base. So when were you first interested or introduced to the kind of the weighted ball routine, or when did you first hear about it?
I got introduced going into would have been my year going into AA. So that was 2014-15, that off season / spring training era. So I was 20. I mean, I got drafted as a senior, so I must have been 23 or 24 when I got introduced to it. And it was it was relatively new. I mean, I got a call with the Rays. I had some good numbers behind my stats and everything, but some of the things just didn't translate was my velocity, and that was in high A. So it was kind of like, to me, it's kind of like an ultimatum, like, hey, you got good stuff, but if you want to get to the next level, we got something that might work, might not. Let's try it out. And there was only a couple of us they invited, and definitely turned my career around for sure.
So, like, when they first talked to you about it, honestly, what did you feel? Were you a little nervous and scared of trying something that you've never done before, but hoping that reward will kind of get you to the major league level?
So I was a late round guy, man. And, any opportunity I was given, I was just like, I want to play baseball. I want to play baseball. So, like, I want to do whatever I can to get that opportunity, and I had some good coaches with the Rays and the minors, and like I called them both up right when I got the call from the pitching coordinator, and I was like, I wasn't skeptical about the weighted balls. I was like more concerned with, like, hey, if I don't do this, like, I have no shot, right? Like, even if I put up good numbers, like, they just don't think it's going to translate. So it's like, for me, when I got it, I was more of like, this is an ultimatum. Like, I got to do this just to get to that next level. It might work, it might not, but like, if I don't try it, then I know that there's a good chance that I'm not going to have the opportunity to go to the next level.
Yeah, that makes total sense there. Ryan, kind of do your breakdown of maybe senior high school, where you were sitting at and topping, and then college, and then pro ball.
So in high school, I was like your traditional, you're like shortstop guy. So I was a pitcher, infielder. I was maybe 88, 89 in high school. I went to FAU. Same thing. I started there at second base with pitching a little bit. I didn't leave FAU throwing any harder than 90, 91 maybe, nothing crazy. I ended up starting there. And then my first year in pro ball, I went to the Penn League, and I got moved from starter to the Penn. So out of nowhere, I was throwing like 94, 95, kind of like, I don't know what it was, a little adrenaline, new game, not the collegiate game. I'm playing against other, some really good ball players, and out of the Penn, so it's a little bit more, intense wise. So I had some good velo then. And then, like, over the next 2 years, my velo was just dipping, kind of consistently. But I still had, pretty decent numbers. And, it's coming into my AA, it's supposed to be going to AA. And that, they gave me the call and they said, hey, you might want to do this. We think you're a good candidate. If we can get you to so-and-so, velocity or back where you were, at Hudson Valley, like, that'd be great. We could see you going further from there. So that's basically how I got introduced. And, I'm thankful for the opportunity they gave me, and it definitely worked out for me.
Absolutely. So Ryan, I'll kind of touch on this because I don't know much about you. I want to try to get as much as we can. What do you like? Kind of what are you doing now? And kind of like, what is your routine with when you get into the field? When it comes to the weighted ball routine, band routine, all those things, and like, are you able to maintain the velocity increase that you just talked about right there?
Right now it's a little different for me because I'm still I use the weighted balls now more as like a recovery session.
Mm-hmm.
And like endurance wise. So it's one thing that I took away from weighted balls was, it got me to a certain point, but I also realized that like I wasn't getting sore, after throwing an inning, after throwing 2 innings, like by keeping up those repetitions with some of the recovery work, I had some good shoulder power built up. And like, I was able to throw, days and days and days in a row, when I got called up, there was a time I threw 4 days in a row with the Rays. And it was like, they joked around, but I was okay to going for a 5th day in a row. But it has to be with the work that I think those weighted balls and the recovery work that comes with that, not just the velocity and blending phases, was really like what I kind of took away from it. So, yeah,
absolutely, yeah. And so Keegan, like, what about your kind of like your daily routine with them, like? Right now, are you similar to Ryan, or use it for recovery and kind of keeping that speed and endurance and be able to keep going from day to day? Like for me, like listening, I like listening to what you guys have to say because we use things a little bit different when we're developing guys to get to college and developing guys in college to pro ball, whereas you guys are already there.
Right. I definitely agree with Ryan on the recovery aspect when it comes to the weighted balls. I definitely can also touch up on the not getting sore aspect of things because I feel like the weighted balls do a very good job of helping you recover very well. But I don't just use them for recovery purposes. I still do like hybrid B and hybrid A days, and that would be like my drills that I do off of the mounds just to make sure that all the work that I've put in, the past few months doing all these weighted ball drills and getting my body to sync up the right way. I don't want to lose that feeling. So I'll still do like the good hybrid B days, which is at like 60% intent, nothing crazy. Just to still feel my body moving in that efficient way. And then, at hybrid A days, it's more of it's not a max effort day, but you're getting after it a little bit more to feel your body moving faster. Like for me, I'm a tempo guy, just to feel the body sync up the right way, how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned all that stuff because we kind of touched on that on the previous episode of there's way more that goes into it than just chunking weighted balls around. So let's approach it now where, Keegan, if I'm a dad, I walk in and I tell you I have a 16-year-old kid that's a pitcher. I've heard good things about weighted balls. Like, what do I need to understand? What would kind of be your, hey, we're going to give you some bullet points of what we're going to do to kind of get him to that level? How would you kind of start that whole process if he's never done it before?
It would definitely be baby steps for sure. Nothing would be thrown to me, especially at the age of 16, you're still growing and things like that. I would definitely not have him throw anything over 50% for about 2 months to 2.5 months, to make sure that, his arms timing up right with his body, his lower halves, rotating good on the backside and different things like that. You can do like the reverse throws and pivot picks every day. That's what I do. I feel like that's an exercise that just helps fire up our decelerators and our accelerators because, our arms can only excel as fast as they can decel. So those would be kind of some of the bullet points that I would touch on that, run them through not a blending phase. It's kind of more of like a build up, kind of like an on-ramping phase. That would definitely go on for at least 2.5 months. And then going from there, just to see the progression to if he's progressed enough to start ramping it up more now into like a velo program. But if he's not synced up to where he needs to be, okay, yeah, maybe we need to do another 4 weeks of just the light intent throwing with the weighted balls off of the mound, to feel the body sync up and, get your good hard catch play in, on flat ground, long toss and different things like that. But when it comes to the weighted ball aspects, that's kind of how I would approach it if I was, talking to a 16-year-old.
Ryan, what about you? Kind of like, how would you approach it, and how important is it to almost like see the athlete throw so you can kind of get a picture of how their mechanics are and how physically strong a kid is?
Yeah. So that was a big thing when I talked to the pitching coordinator when, they invited me. It was only 4 of us. They didn't just, invite everybody that was throwing, low to mid 80s or, mid to high 80s, whatever. They didn't just invite they had to look into, the physicality of the person, how their body was built. Right. So like, I did really well. There was only 2 other guys there or 3 guys, but like, I could see where like, you don't want a really low slot, kind of guy throwing, slinging these weighted balls because, to me, it just, I think you need to have more of like a power position when you're throwing to be able to throw these weighted balls. And on top of that, I mean, like, none of these kids that they're inviting were guys that didn't work out. Like, all they got, like when I was there, like I was working out, just coming out of college, so like I was used to working out, 5 days in the morning, at FAU. So like I was physically strong. I was short, I was strong, but like I had some, backbone to my, my physical appearance. So like I was a strong dude that could probably handle everything that was going into it. And then like on top of what Keegan kind of mentioned was like the 2 to 3 months, like that might seem like a lot, but like if you're jumping into this weighted ball program, like it's not a 2-month fix and you're going to start throwing. It's like, it's a year-long, honestly, thing. You take off like your 2 weeks here in the summer or after you've done the season. And some guys don't even take off anytime, It's like almost like you like a life, choice. Like you're going to do this and you want to keep going, like, and like on top of that, man, like I was, when I had the opportunity to do it with the Rays, I mean, I was working out hard through the whole blending phases, through the whole weighted ball process. And on top of that, like I was ice bathing like, 3 times, 4 times a week because like, I mean, your body, I mean, you're going over here, some of these days you're crow hopping, a weighted ball as hard as you can. Like it takes a toll on your body. And if you're not able to recover, do the proper workouts, and also like eat the right meals and put all the fuel in your body, like something's going to give and you're not going to get everything you can out of it. Like, I went into it, full force, like, hey, like I'm here for this amount of time to do this. I had to miss spring training that year because I was doing this whole thing. So I knew I was going to miss a month, 2 months into the AA season. And I wasn't even sure that I was going to get called to AA afterwards. I didn't know. But I could put in every ounce I had into it. I ate well. I freaking, like I said, I was ice bathing every day. I was doing my shoulder program as in like the recovery work, like doing everything that I could possibly think of and what they gave me to be ready for this all around body like change, almost that you're going into when you do this. So like, going into like a 16-year-old, man, like that's young. And like he said, like they're still growing. So like I would, along with the 2 to 3 months, man, like that's a long process. I would think of with the 16-year-old because they're still growing, man. And there's no reason to just jump right into, chucking those weighted balls. Like they really got to get built up.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And I'm glad you guys both touched on that. For me, like this is for me is like, I tell guys like, let's maximize our ability in the weight room. Let's maximize our plyometrics, explosive work. Once you turn 18 years old, let's maximize our ability and what we know works, the long toss, all these things. And then we can start, like you guys talk about, like blending in and starting to use low weighted balls in a certain way. Like for us, like we use, like you guys are talking about, we do a lot of reverse throws. We do a lot of recovery decelerator work with them. Scat movement. We do a lot of things to strengthen the shoulder joint and strengthen everything around it. But Ryan, could you break down, like when you showed up to do this program, and obviously, like you said, you missed spring training. When you showed up, like what kind of mobility assessment, what kind of things did they do with you first before introducing what you were going to do? And then how long was it? How long was that process, like in totality? And when did you first start seeing results when you started doing it?
So they told me to come in January. So I was there, 2 weeks after the new year. And so I was through January, through February, and through March. And so the whole time I was just doing weighted ball stuff. So I wasn't really on the mound. So after I kind of completed the whole weighted ball work, then I had to do mound work. So that's where that second month came in place, where to get my innings at, you know, an extended spring training and to get all that stuff. So that's why I didn't go to AA until, I don't know, you know, 2 months after spring training technically ended. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I was there. We got assessed. We got the normal assessment that they do kind of like every year. You know, they get your mobility works. They see how far your thoracic mobility is. Is it good? Is it bad? What do you need to work on? Quad dominant, you know, hamstring dominant, like what it is. All that same stuff that they kind of do now, like with forget like the actual name of the company or that they go through and do this stuff. And they go into a weight test and see where your strength is with squatting and overhead or whatever, all your presses and pulls and stuff like that. And then we built in slow. I think I was throwing only 3 times a week, but I was working out 4 times a week. And then kind of flip-flopped to throwing 4 times a week to working out 3 times a week. And on top of that, like I said, I was ice bathing every chance I could to just keep recovery, keep it going. Slowly built up to basically crow hopping a weighted ball, 7 ounce, an 8 ounce, and a 9 ounce ball into a net, you know, from like, you know, 650 feet away. And I had like a steady increase of velocity going in, probably like in the end of the first month, we started ramping it up and I had a steady increase. And then I kind of I was telling Keegan the other day, like when he was asking me about it, I kind of hit like a plateau where like my velo dropped, like not tremendously, but it dropped and it kind of plateaued for about a week and a half. And I think what I was telling Keegan is I think for me, it was just my body was like, whoa, like a lot of work just went on. Let's recover right here. You know, a week and a half, still did my work. This didn't feel right, but like something was going on. After that week and a half, my velo jumped up to like, you know, I was crow hopping those balls, you know, 105, 110 miles an hour. And that's where I saw the big increase, you know. And even then, man, it wasn't just for me like throwing the balls at that speed. Like I think Keegan kind of talked about it being like an aggressive pitcher, being those fast tempo guys. Like for me, I also think it helped me get back into being that aggressive guy, that guy like, all right, here it comes. Like I'm gonna throw this one. Like I'm gonna have like full intent behind it. You know, like when I got called up, I was kind of that guy. Or when I got signed, I was that guy. And then I kind of had a little too many walks. You know what they told me. So like I had the mindset of, oh, maybe I got to hit the plate a little more often, right? So like maybe I was backing down a little bit. So it got me back to being that aggressive kind of thrower, you know, constantly doing the crow hops and throwing and pulling and everything as hard as you can. The mental aspect of being aggressive was another, you know, great aspect of it.
And how much did you end up increasing in velocity from that program that you were in? You were in the Rays organization when that happened, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yeah. So the year before, I mean, I was rearing back and throwing like as hard as I could. I was like 86, 87, 88. I don't know why, I just was. And I remember one of the pitching coaches at Port Charlotte, he was like, you know, maybe it's because you're getting old. And I was like, man, I'm like 23. Like, this is not the reason, right? This can't be the reason. So I got bumped back up and I got caught up to AA after the whole thing. And I was sitting like 93. And then next year I started at AAA and I ended up throwing 90. I was just 95, 93 to 95. And I took that into the big leagues. And I think I hit 96 a couple times, you know, and then from there kind of stayed the same. And then I had like hip surgery later on and that kind of dropped some, you know, velo and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I definitely got an increase. And I definitely think that, I mean, without that increase, regardless of how good my stuff was, it was like, you know, I was a reliever. I was, you know, you're not going to, you know, you don't see a lot of short, you know, righties throwing, you know, high 80s and out of the pen, you know, maybe a starter, but not as the pen. So
that's awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Keegan, with you, when you started, you said your senior year, you were right around like you were touching 95. How long was it when you started doing the weighted ball program that you started really, I guess I'd say before versus when you actually started doing the program that you really kind of peaked out like velocity wise? And actually, I mean, you say you're throwing 99, so maybe you're not peaked out yet. Maybe you might be popping 102 soon. Who knows?
So whenever I got into the weighted ball program, I did like a blending phase for about, I want to say 10 weeks. I'm in an on-ramping phase for about 10 weeks, just, getting everything timed up right. And then I jumped into the velo program. They thought I was ready for it. So they said, okay, let's do it. I want to say I got, during the velo program, I jumped, I think my PR week was around like week 4 out of week 6. That's whenever I got up to 102 with the walking windups, 105 on the step behinds. And then like week 5 and week 6, the ball was still coming out like really well. It just wasn't kind of like around Ryan was saying earlier, it just wasn't. It's like my body was just saying, hey, you've just been, so strenuous on my body, on your body, for so long. But I was like Ryan said, taking ice baths, just doing everything I could to possibly recover every single day to get back out there. Week 5 and week 6, I kind of dropped a little bit on the walking windups and the step behinds, not much, but like the velo was still there, but it just didn't feel like the life was behind it coming out. So then I had like a little deload week, and then I got into this blending phase, actually getting able to throw a baseball now, like, because, I haven't actually thrown a baseball off the mound yet. So I got in this blending phase, like the first 2 or 3 weeks, or actually like the first week, it just felt like my arm was just kind of like lagging behind or whatever. And then week 2, man, everything, it just like clicked. Everything just started jumping out really well. That's whenever I hit the PR in the bullpen. It was in week 2. And then, week 3 and week 4, I was still sitting 95, 96 in the pins, doing pretty well. And then it's just like, my arm just hit another like, whoa, you've been really hard. And, I was just rearing back, trying to throw it as hard as I could, and I was just sitting 93. So, now I'm into like this deload week to get my arm, ready to bounce back, to start with these live BPs that I get to get into now here coming up, building the spring training. So that's kind of, where I peaked and like different things like that.
Yeah, that makes so much sense too on how you blended it all together. Guys, how much is this like talked about among you guys in the bullpen when you are sitting down there and during the game while the game's going on? Like, are y'all talking about doing weighted ball stuff, or what do you do in the off season? And I just know that when guys mention the word weighted balls, you always get a reaction of like, oh, I don't know. Like, you can't say that. Like, that could be something dangerous and bad there. So I just want to know, like, how often do you guys talk about this with either teammates or guys that are still playing this game? What about you, Keegan?
For like in season, I'm not the guy that really talks a whole lot in the bullpen. I'm always the guy that's kind of like watching the game, kind of seeing like how the starters are getting people out and different things like that. Just kind of, managing the game and watching it to see, okay, this is kind of like the situation, where, that's my time, getting loose in between innings and different things like that. I would say more of like the talk about like weighted ball things, different stuff like that. Adam is more on the like off season type of stuff, and maybe like into the clubhouse, like here and there type things. I would definitely say like in games down in the bullpens, like for me, like we don't really talk a whole lot about that type of things, like in game and different things like that. But I mean, the weighted ball program, it definitely gets discussed, like for sure. Like, I mean, I've sat down and talked for hours, with guys after games, not leaving the field till almost midnight, just trying to, especially whenever we were, with the Yankees just getting introduced to all this new stuff. A lot of us would sit down and be like, oh God, some of the guys were kind of skeptical about it, and some guys like me were like, all right, hell yeah, let's do this. Type of deal. That's kind of how it is from my aspect.
Yeah, Ryan, when you were first introduced, you said it was just you and 3 other guys that got introduced to the weighted ball stuff. If you had to guess now, say there's a 12-man kind of between bullpen and starting rotation, how many guys do you think are doing a current off-season like weighted ball program, if you had to guess?
Oh, man. Honestly, I don't know a lot of – I mean, your power starters definitely do. I mean, and I would say your majority of your righties out of the pen absolutely do. You know, I mean, the only guys I think that won't be in the pen that are doing that kind of stuff is like, you know, your lefties that are not power lefties. You know, they're your guys that are spinning the ball a lot and, you know, just playing that lefty game. Yeah, man, I would say if I had to put a percentage on it, out of the pen, I mean, I would say honestly close to 80% of those guys, man. Like, I mean, I know, man, now, especially everyone's throwing 95, 98 and out of the pen. It's no new thing, but they're all kind of doing that kind of stuff, you know. All your power guys. I mean, I always hear about it. Now, I don't know about the Latinos because some of those guys just throw fuel anyway. You know, I don't know what I don't know what goes on over there in the academies, but I know, like, you know, all the Americans. And I mean, there are some Latinos. I know a couple of Latinos that do it. They do like recovery work, like once or twice a week during the season. You know, they're doing some weighted ball stuff, and I mean, yeah, I definitely easily the majority, without a doubt.
Nice. That's good. That's good info. And for me and for Adam and I, like, you know, for me, when a strength coach perspective, we were just talking about this. Is my first goal is keep guys healthy. And I want to make sure guys are healthy. I want to make sure guys will be able to repeat and do what they need to do day in and day out. And you guys were talking about that and talk about, you guys both, like, you kind of peaked and then you kind of dropped a little bit. And from everything on the research that I've seen is like, that is probably that jump was probably the neural adaptation. And then when you deloaded, gives your body time to acclimate, and then kind of maybe you're ready to increase and be consistent at that velocity. It sounds like to me, listening to you guys talk, and I'll kind of ask you first, Keegan, like, the recovery work seems like it's the most important. It's the thing that allows you to do the stuff in, day out. Saying that, give me an example of like the recovery work and the stuff that you do as part of your daily routine.
Okay. So every single day, I have a band series that I do. It'd be I either do 2 sets or 3 sets. A lot of the times, you know, I just kind of, you know, how's my body feeling, this and that. Like if I feel like I need that extra set, that 3rd set, you know, to get a little bit more into that, I'll do that. But I'll go through rebounders. I'll do some body blade stuff, the band series, and I just keep that continuously going. Like once I'm done with the other, I'll go right to the next. Once I'm done with that, go right to the next. So it's a continuous cycle. You know, the blood's rushed through through your body, bringing oxygen, you know, to go ahead and start promoting that healing. And then, you know, the weight room for me is, I think, you know, helps your body recover as well. Getting in there and then into the weight room and doing, you know, a good leg day, you know, with some good pulls and some good pushes in there as well. That's kind of like what I do on a daily basis when it comes to the recovery aspect.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Ryan? Like, what I know you said that right now, like the majority of your stuff is recovery now, as opposed to really working on that velocity development. Kind of run us through what you're doing on a recovery stuff consistently.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty much doing what Keegan's in, except the whole blending and throwing down the hill, doing the more intense weighted ball stuff. So I mean, like every day when I'm going to throw, I'm going to do the reverse throws before. I'm going to do some band. I do a whole band circuit before, and I also do some forearm stuff. And then afterwards, it's pretty much the same thing I started the day with, but I basically do 2 of them. So like double the whole sets of forearm work, band work, reverse throws, like all that same stuff, you know. And then on like the big part of it to me is the gym, man. Like I'm lucky enough that my wife's a strength coach, so she's got a really good insight of like what to do, when to like, you know, excel at certain things, and when to deload. And like I'm going to throw an intense bullpen on Monday, like I want to do a dynamic day on Sunday to be prepared for like. So I've got some good good help behind my back with that kind of stuff. And I think, being in the weight room is a really good part of your recovery, on top of the part of getting stronger as well.
Yeah, and when it comes to, and you mentioned the forearm stuff, and you both did, and I'll have you guys both answer this. I'll start with you, Ryan. Like, UCL injuries are higher than they've ever been. What kind of forearm stuff do you guys do for recovery and to kind of help protect your UCL? And do your organizations specifically talk about that? And how do they teach you guys to take care of your elbow, or if they do at all?
Most organizations will have a certain shoulder program they're going to run you through, during the season. It's usually, some people do it the days they throw, after they throw, or some people just do it every 3 days. They'll just do it. Every organization's got a different one. I've been around for a little bit, so like I kind of have my own that I go to, and everyone's cool with that. My cousin's also a physical therapist. I've always gone to her for some certain things. So I use the flex bar. Have you seen those blue like flex bars?
Yeah.
I do a lot of what's the word? Like eccentric stuff with that. So I'll bend it and just slowly eccentric on the way up. Same thing with the revert with the wrist curl. Hold it eccentric on the way down. Opposite. I do a lot of eccentrics with that, with the forearm stuff. Hold a bat out with the weight on top. Eccentric. Same thing. So whenever you're doing eccentric stuff or iso stuff, you're going for that tendon work. You're not doing any muscle work. It's all for your tendons there. And then after I do all that, there's a couple stretches. I put my hand on the wall, some neck lifts the opposite way. And that's what I've gone to, and it's been very good for me.
Absolutely. What about you, Keegan? What are you kind of focusing on with the elbow?
To me, I like to do a lot of grip strength stuff. So I'll grab like a 35-pound plate, in both hands, sit there and try and hold it for just over a minute. I try and shoot for like a minute and 15 seconds. Try and do that 2 to 3 times. I do a lot of the like internal and external rotation with bands when it comes to that stuff. To me, like I'm not a guy, like my forearms never really like kind of like bothered me. Just the stuff that I've always done in the weight room has kind of always made my forearm feel fine. I'm a huge fan of, rice buckets, doing, clockwise for, 45 seconds and then going counterclockwise for 45 seconds, just sitting there gripping it. I'm huge fan of farmer carries. To me, for what makes my forearm recover the best, I think is like a lot of like the grip strength stuff. That never really seems to like make my forearm tight or anything like that. And then, every day I do, I foam roll with the lacrosse ball. I get in there, roll out my forearm every single day when it comes to that. I do some eccentric stuff like Ryan's talking about. I do that with the rice barrels though, or the rice buckets. And also touching up on the shoulder program, like Ryan said, we have shoulder programs and things like that. But like I've found out what works best for me, and so like that's kind of like what I run with. And I've taken bits and pieces from our shoulder program that we do at the Yankees, and I've also taken bits and pieces, of things that I've even seen Ryan do. I don't even know if he knows that, and I've kind of started incorporating that into the things that I do. And different things like that. And that's kind of what helps me recover with the forearm the most.
Watching both of you guys kind of go through your routines. I sit back from afar, and it's so impressive to see what you guys do to get ready to throw the baseball. And can y'all kind of elaborate on how important it is that your body is ready to go before you pick up that ball? I think so many young kids and dads and coaches, and they just don't understand how important that stuff is. They all want to run off a clock of, hey, we've got 10 minutes, so hurry up and start getting loose. So the kid grabs the balls and start playing catch. And you both go through your pre-throwing routine. If maybe you have a bullpen that night or a game that night, or if it's just you're getting your regular throwing in like in the off season. Can you kind of discuss that? Keegan, I'll start with you.
Right. So to me, Adam, like, being like a bullpen guy, I treat it every day as if I'm going to get into the game. Right. So I always start off with my hip mobilities, and then I go into my shoulder mobilities. Then I go into my dynamic, and then, you know, my band series and weighted balls. So with all of that being said, you know, I think it's, you know, even with Ryan, you know, me and Ryan, you know, communicate whenever we would go throw, right? You know, I went ahead and told Ryan, I was like, you know, it takes me about an hour, hour and a half, you know, and before I'm ready to throw a baseball, because, you know, I'm stuck on that routine of, you know, I need to do this every single day, because in the bullpen, you know, you don't really necessarily know what day you're going to throw, right? You know, it could be the situations that you're throwing into the game, you know, may come earlier than some, or it may not even come that day, right? So, you know, I just want to always be prepared for whenever my name's called, to give myself, you know, the best opportunity going out there. You know, I want to set myself up for success. So I definitely say it takes me anywhere from an hour, hour and a half to get fully loose and to get fully ready before I'm even picking up a baseball.
Man, that's great stuff, because I can promise you somebody right now is like, holy cow, he does an hour before he even touches the ball. Like, that's incredible right there. But that's also why you're successful. You have an healthy arm and you're throwing hard. Ryan, what was kind of your throwing routine that you get ready to do every day?
Yeah, so I'm one of those guys that's not that long. You know, Keegan's up there because he'll, like, you know, we're going to throw at 10. Keegan's going to be there at 9. I'm probably going to show up at like 9:40. So I got like a 20-minute routine. There's a reason behind it. You know, there's, you know, in the bullpen, you know, you're not going to have, you know, an hour when you get your name called to go throw. Like, you got to be ready in 8 pitches. So the good thing about the bullpen is that you can start working, you know, in the second inning, doing your, you know, he can do his hip stuff all throughout the game, be ready to go. I'm just a guy, I get there, I do a normal general warm up, you know, jog, reverse lunges, forward lunges, and then I'll do some lunges with some rotation, and then I do a little bit of CNS prep to get your nervous system going, which is really the big thing about getting your body going. Then I run into some band stuff. So my stuff like takes me 20 minutes, and I'm pretty much ready to go after that. But like, that's something that I've, you know, accumulated my body to get ready for, because I want to be ready as fast as I can. So like, you know, normally in the season, it's like the 5th inning, depending on how the starter's going. It's like, all right, I'm going right now. Let's get through my workout. Let's get the CNS going. Boom, I'm ready to go. I hop on the mound, 8 pitches. Like, all right, that's it. Like, I'm good to go. Because, you know, you just never know how much time you have to get going. And it's one of those things, you know, I've learned along the way. I've gotten called, and I've gotten, you know, I've thrown one ball in the bullpen on the mound, and the next call is 2 seconds after. They're like, hey, you know, Garton, you ready to go? And you're not going to say, you know, you're not going to say no, right? So like, you know, you learn these things. And I was a starter before, so I had a longer routine. I used to run poles before the game just to get ready. You know, it's just one of those things that I've accumulated in my body that treat it a little differently. But what I do is good for me, and I get ready, and I have the sweat going after that. You know, 15 to 20 minutes of warming up. So it's definitely important. You can't. I mean, some of these young kids, you know, they are young and they're flexible. They're ready to go right out of the bat, and that's great and all. But I mean, you're talking about possible injuries easy. You know, when that stuff kind of comes out, because you can hop on the mound and throw, or in the bullpen and throw a ball as hard as you can, but when you get on the mound with the batter in there, there's going to be a little bit more intent behind it, a little bit more aggressiveness. And if your body's not ready for that little slight more adjustment to that 5% more, you know, that could be where, you know, the injuries happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And listening to your guys' routine, especially, you know, listening to you, Keegan, you know, in order to be able to do what you guys are going to do and talk about the recovery and be able to do everything back to back to back to back, you got to have that consistent routine. You got to have the volume. You got to have your deloads. You got to be able to adjust. And for you guys, you've been doing this for a long period of time, so you guys know your bodies. And I think that's one thing that with young guys and guys in college too. Like, I mean, we were in college back in the day. Like, we were just trying to, you know, hit the ball hard and run fast. Like, we didn't know what we were doing half the time. You know, and when you get the science and start learning your body behind it and understanding why certain things work, that goes such a long way. But, you know, with this spring, and I was kind of talking to some of my old LT guys and some of my old Bulls players, kind of how's everything getting ready for you guys right now? I know with COVID and everything, I'm kind of curious to what you guys are doing. I know, Keegan, you said you're getting ready to do some live ABs here soon. Like, kind of what's on the schedule? Some things still up in the air. Like what's kind of going on with you right now, Keegan?
Right now, we just had a Zoom not too long ago. They are saying report dates still shooting for April 1st. Not sure exactly how many guys they're going to bring down right off the bat. They're still waiting on MLB to come out with COVID-19 like protocol manual for us. So, we're still kind of waiting to hear about that. As they're telling us as much information, as they're getting. So right now, I'm prepared to go ahead and, hopping on that flight and heading down to Tampa April 1st. That's what I'm right now. Like I said, that's just what my mindset right now, because, that's all I know. And I've also heard the first day of camp's going to be like April 5th. So I'm assuming, they're going to, start bringing guys down in small increments, probably starting April 1st, leading up to the 4th, getting everybody in for COVID tests, blood works, physicals, the whole 9 yards.
Gotcha. What's going on with you, Ryan? What's your schedule like?
I'm currently still a free agent, so I'm just trying to wait it out. See where my my possibilities lie. So my buddy just signed the other day, so just kind of waiting around. Still working out. Just kind of slowing down on the throwing right now, just to make sure that I don't over exceed myself at some point. So just trying to just stay focused. Go to the gym, get my recovery in, make sure that I'm healthy, do what I can to be ready for when that call happens. And just hoping for the best and hoping just for an opportunity. So
good stuff.
Yep, that's awesome stuff right there. And kind of my last question here towards the end that I want to approach you guys. So let's go back. I'm the 16-year-old that just finished up my high school, then I played some summer ball, and now I really want to try to make that velocity jump, so to speak. So say I come in, I'm ready to make a 6-month commitment. I'll bust my butt 5 days a week, and just to try to hope to gain 2 to 4, whatever it is, mile per hour. Ryan, kind of how would you put a game plan together for him? You don't have to break it down what you would do exactly for 6 months, but what would be some key points you would hit on? He's just coming off his summer season to get ready. So when he steps on the field February 20th to play his high school game, what are some things that you would really harp in on to try to get him to that level of reaching a little bit more velocity?
Mm-hmm. I would say the first thing is he's got to come down to Heisler heat. That'd be the first thing. No, I mean, he's got to be ready to make a commitment. So he's got to be full in. I remember my mom and my dad both tell me a simple phrase, and I'll probably mess it up, but to be a professional athlete, to be, one of the best, because every year it's getting more competitive. You have to have, you only can have two things. It's you got to put one of these things, or out of the two things, the three things, you got to put one of these things away. Your social life, it kind of goes away, because you got to have academics, and then you want to be bad, in the sports world. So the third thing is your social life, and that's you talk to some of these crazy athletes, and it's you don't realize how much time they actually put into their sport. These guys, their social lives really aren't that extraordinary, because they're putting so much time into baseball or football or whatever it is that they're doing. So that's the first thing is all of us playing baseball, I never personally experienced a spring break in my entire life. Never have. Always been playing ball, right? All my friends, all y'all's friends, everyone's friends go to spring break, have a good time. That was never me. I was always putting time into baseball. So you got to be ready to have that commitment. And, that's hard for some people, and then you can't be mad when, the guy across the street, is doing a little bit better than you because he's possibly putting in more time than you. That's one of the things that, I was always told at a young age. And, I've kind of, my social life wasn't what people thought it out to be, just a lot of baseball, man, a lot of baseball. But yeah, you got to be ready to make a commitment. And then you also have to have the mindset of going, full throttle into this thing, not half-assing it, so to speak. You want to be in it and be in it. You don't want to just do a little bit here, a little bit there. I mean, if you're doing a 6-month program, man, like you can't take off a week. Like you just can't, because then what's the whole point of doing a 6-month program? Like, it's tough, man. It's a tough commitment, but that's why you only have a handful of the greats, because they're able to make those tough commitments. So to me, man, the first thing is it's just honestly your overall commitment. And that's where it starts. And then if you can stay with that, I mean, you can come in, get some kind of work in and day out, man. Like, you're going to be a better athlete. It's not going to happen overnight, but I mean, over a whole course of 6 months, man, like, a lot can change if you put in the time.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, like we always say, if it was easy, everybody would be doing this, and it's not. You have to give up some things. Keegan, how would you kind of approach that?
Definitely, you're gonna have to start by coming down to Heisler Heat, like Ryan said, because I mean, we just get after it here every single day, no doubt about it. But touching up on what Ryan said, man, it's just the dedication aspect of things. Like, like I've never had a spring break my entire life. I can't remember one time I went to spring break and did something like that, because it was always baseball. And you have to be okay with that. You have to know that at the end of the day, right? Like, yeah, whenever we're younger and things like that, we're competing against kids that are just, in the United States, right? But, once you get introduced to pro ball, right, it's a global thing. You know what I'm saying? So, we do things here different in the United States, versus, other places like that, right? So, like Ryan said, it's a dedication type thing, man. Like, how many times in the week are you going to be in the weight room? Instead of going out to the movie that night with, all your buddies, are you going to be staying in and getting that 10 hours of sleep, with that good meal that you needed, versus going to the movies and eating that candy and that popcorn and drinking that soda, right? Are you going to, to me, like Ryan hit it out of the ballpark when it comes to that. Like, it's like, that's what it is, man. Like, if you're that kid that's 16 years old, right, and you want to get to that 2 to 4 to the 6 mile an hour jump, right? Like, how willing are you going to be able to want to do that? Because at the end of the day, like, you can't point fingers and say, oh, well, I just wasn't good enough. Well, you also have to sit there and look yourself in the mirror. How much time did I put into myself? How much time did I invest into myself? Right. And like Ryan said, there's only a handful of greats, because like, those guys are just so dedicated to things. Like, people think that all these, big time guys, go do whatever they want to do, during the off season and things like that. They have no idea that, those guys might take like 1 week, 2 weeks off max, and then they're right back in the lab focusing on, what they need to do to even get better, versus, am I weak on the mental side? Am I strong on the mental side? Am I weak on the weight room side? Or, there's a whole, there's always room for improvement. And my motto, and I've always ran with this my entire life, is never be satisfied. Like, you can't sit there and be satisfied one day and be like, okay, I'm okay with being this good. Like, to me, like, that's not okay. I don't want to have that mindset. I don't want to surround myself with people that have that type of mindset. I'm always that type of guy who sets goals that are almost like unattainable in a way, right? To keep me going. Like, and I've even talked to Chris, our mental conditioning guy. I called him like not too long ago, because I was finding myself getting frustrated in a way. And he was like, well, what are you getting frustrated at? And I started telling him a couple of my goals, and he was like, well, do you think that those are even obtainable? And I was like, well, probably not. But I mean, that always keeps me moving. And, that's what, whenever I wake up the next day, like, that's what I'm striving for. And that's what I'm pushing to get, and if I hit one of those goals, okay, well, I have to look myself in the mirror and say, was that goal way too easy that I set for myself? Or was that something that I could look back on and say that I busted my ass for, an entire year and finally got to where I wanted to be, type deal. So it all falls back on the one word, and it's commitment. how committed are you going to be to it?
Yep. And that, I loved hearing both your guys' perspectives because I think it's a perfect way to end it right there because, it's one thing to say things. It's one thing to say you're going to do things, but it's a completely different ballgame to actually be that person day in and day out and live that life. Like not taking your spring breaks, not missing the time. Because people look at a program and say, I'm going to do this for 6 months. Not understanding that, if you miss 1 week of each month, you're missing 25% of your work. I miss a couple of things here and there. People don't look at it like that, and everything, it builds up and talking about attaining goals and stuff. And I'm a firm believer that you have to set unrealistic expectations. If you set modest goals are for average people. If you want to be an average person, average people, the world needs average people too. But people with that other mindset, we're going to be kicking your ass and taking names like that. That's the attitude that you got to have. And with you guys, obviously, we're all athletes. I'm an old weekend warrior. I'm an old has-been that woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? You guys are a different level. So, but like with that mindset, like I know that like you guys being athletes, I would assume you guys probably carry that to every aspect of your life. Like you want to be great at everything you do in life. You want to carry that over. You want to be a great husband, a great son, whatever it is. You can correlate that work ethic and what you do as a ball player or, that war between yourself and the mirror to get to that next level. And I love hearing people talk about that stuff because it's everybody's different. Everybody has their own struggles. Everybody has their own motivation. I love negative when people say negative things because it just makes me want to personally, to conquer those negative things. And I know you guys are probably the same. If somebody says, "Hey, you can't do something," you're like, "Okay, dude, I'm watching me do it." Like that's just the mindset. But is there anything else you guys want to kind of close out with before we get rolling?
I thought about this when we were just talking about this subject. A couple years ago, Kershaw had like a quote about he pulled out a negative of going to the playoffs, which is like ridiculous, right? The guy's in the playoffs and he pulls his negative out and he goes, "Yeah, when we're in the playoffs, I am now after the playoffs, I am 3 weeks, 4 weeks behind the guys that stopped. So I have to catch up." So he was already thinking that like he's in the playoffs or, after the playoffs, he's like, "Man, like, dude, these guys have a month head start on me. Like, I got to get better." And this is Clayton Kershaw. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, right? It's like this kind of mindset is ridiculous, but like, that's what it takes, man. Like, that's what it takes. It's not a coincidence that this guy's as good as he is,
Yep. Absolutely. 100% right there. You got to have that mentality, but like, and we all watch, we talk about all the time, like that Michael Jordan documentary that happened almost a year ago. Like elite athletes have very similar mindsets. And I think it's why a lot of elite athletes get along, but a lot of times you see guys not getting along because of that mindset. And that applies to a lot of things. And as we know in the clubhouse, there's certain dudes that you get along with, certain dudes you do not. For me, it was always the guys that tried to ride along and was right here. I could never get along with guys like that. But yeah, for sure. Well, hey guys, we really appreciate you guys hopping on here, and especially the weighted ball stuff. Like for us, and we touched about our feelings toward everything. And there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's so many ways. I love hearing the background of the story, especially with you, Ryan. Like hearing what it did for you, and like, hey, we're going to bring 4 guys here. We're going to test this out. And Keegan, it seems like it's been progressively increasing, and there's even more gains to come. And Ryan, man, hopefully you get that phone call here soon. And get ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, but man, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for taking the time and filling us with as much of your knowledge as possible to kind of help us grow the game and help young athletes kind of understand that mentality, especially towards the end. That was my favorite part. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we roll out?
No, thanks for coming on, guys, and sharing your stories, man. I know the guys in the facility as well as the listeners to this it's eye-opening, and it just kind of puts everything into a whole perspective, and that's what makes you guys special, makes you guys you. So thank you for spending some time with us. We really enjoyed it.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, until next time, we'll see you guys later.